Snoop Dogg, a quiet and withdrawn older man, entered a luxury car dealership one afternoon. His simple, well-groomed appearance and modest clothing did not make him seem like a typical buyer of a high-priced vehicle. What he did not know, however, was that this visit would trigger a chain of events, which was to change the lives of all those involved. As soon as he arrived, he noticed the lively atmosphere in the car dealership. Salesmen in perfectly fitting suits rushed between the customers, laughing and talking to potential buyers who wore expensive and striking outfits. However, Snoop Dogg was not here to be impressed by external appearances. His goal was clear. He wanted to see and possibly buy one of the advertised luxury models. Despite his firm intention, he quickly realized that he was not welcome here. As he walked from one shiny vehicle to the next, he felt the appraising glances of the co-workers. Some gave him a quick, almost annoyed look before turning their attention back to the more important audience, younger and obviously wealthier customers. After 20 minutes of ignorance, Snoop Dogg began to feel uncomfortable. He stood next to an elegant limousine, ran his hand over the Morello's paintwork, and waited patiently for someone to approach him, but that didn't happen. Instead, he heard quiet giggles and muffled remarks behind him, which were clearly aimed at him. A young salesman with perfectly combed hair gave him a fleeting glance, but decided to turn instead to a wealthy-looking couple who had just entered the showroom. Snoop Dogg watched the scene, deeply disappointed by the superficiality he encountered here. It was not only the lack of attention that bothered him, but the way he was dismissed because of his appearance. To the employees, he was apparently just an older man of no importance. But Snoop Dogg was not just any man. Behind his calm facade lay a life of success and intelligence. Decades of smart investments and strategic decisions had earned him a considerable fortune, yet he thought it was unnecessary to show off his wealth. He lived simply, drove an older car, and enjoyed quiet evenings at home instead of glamorous parties. The injustice that hit him again that afternoon, however, was something he could not ignore. With a mixture of calm and determination, he finally went to the main counter, behind which 3 salesmen were engaged in a lively conversation. "Excuse me," Snoop Dogg began politely. "I am interested in one of your vehicles. Could someone help me?" One of the salesmen, a young man with an arrogant look, looked up briefly, and with a dismissive tone, he said, "We are busy at the moment. Maybe you can come back later." Snoop Dogg's face showed no emotion. But inside, this moment had triggered something in him. It was not the first moment of disrespect in his life, but this time he would not pass it by in silence. He smiled slightly, turned around, and left the car dealership. The next day, however, Snoop Dogg returned, and this time he had not come as an ordinary customer, but as the new owner of the car dealership. The employees who had ignored and belittled him only hours before could not believe what was happening. The older man they considered unimportant was suddenly their new boss. What followed was an unexpected turn of events. Snoop Dogg ensured that justice was done and sent a clear message about the importance of respect and courtesy in dealing with others. Snoop Dogg felt frustration and anger overcome him as he left the car dealership. The disparaging looks, the fleeting remarks about his alleged waste of time, all this gnawed at him. A salesman had laughed at him and muttered that he was probably just window shopping. What the employees did not suspect was that Snoop Dogg was much more than what they saw at first sight. The humiliation he felt that day would not be forgotten so quickly. Sitting in his old car, Snoop Dogg made a decision that would change everything. It was not over. Quite the opposite. It had only just begun. The next morning he returned, but this time he was not just a customer who wanted to buy a car. He was a man with a plan. The night before, he had mobilized some of his most influential contacts. Within a few hours, the pressure he built up was so great that they had to sell the entire car dealership. Snoop Dogg was no longer interested in cars. He wanted the whole business. When he got out of his car and entered the shop, he encountered the same faces as the day before. The salesmen who had ignored him now stood there clueless. They had no idea who Snoop Dogg really was, or what he was planning. The general manager, a middle-aged man named Tom, greeted him with a forced smile. "Good morning, sir. How can we help you today?" he asked politely, without knowing what was about to happen. Snoop Dogg calmly pulled out a set of documents from his briefcase and handed them to Tom, who stood frozen behind the counter. His expression was calm, yet his eyes conveyed a quiet intensity as he spoke in a voice that carried authority, yet remained eerily composed. "I'm not here to buy a car," Snoop Dogg said, his voice steady. Tom's confident smile faltered immediately as he took the documents. His hands began to tremble as he sifted through them, his face turning ashen. He blinked a few times, unsure if he was seeing things clearly, but the words on the papers were unmistakable. Snoop Dogg continued, his tone unwavering. "I'm here as your new boss." A rumble went through the room. The salesman who had ridiculed Snoop Dogg the day before now stood completely still, their expressions morphing from disbelief to confusion and, eventually, a hint of worry. They exchanged glances with one another, trying to process what was happening. The older man they had once dismissed was now in complete control. Snoop Dogg looked around the room with a calm, almost clinical gaze. His voice, when it came again, was laced with a quiet but undeniable authority. "Yesterday, I came here in the hope of buying a car, but instead of being treated with respect, I was ignored, rejected, and, because of my appearance, judged. You all made assumptions about me without knowing a single thing about who I am or what I've accomplished." The employees in the room stood frozen, looking at each other nervously. The boldness that had defined their actions just 24 hours earlier had now vanished. The confident smiles from the day before had completely disappeared. Snoop Dogg continued without hesitation, his voice becoming more resolute with each passing word. "I am now the owner of this car dealership, and some things are going to change around here." He turned his gaze to Tom, who was now visibly sweating. His shirt clung to his back, his eyes wide with shock and fear. Tom had no idea how to respond, but Snoop Dogg wasn't waiting for a response. He was taking action. "Tom, you are fired," Snoop Dogg said, his words slicing through the silence like a sharp knife. "And anyone else who has ever treated me, or any customer, with such a lack of respect will be gone as well." The atmosphere in the room became heavy with tension. The silence was deafening. No one had expected this outcome. The salesman, who had once looked down on Snoop Dogg, now felt a deep sense of discomfort. They were left standing, unsure of what to do, as Snoop Dogg's presence seemed to fill the entire room. With a calm yet commanding demeanor, Snoop Dogg set about overhauling the workforce. He immediately began the difficult task of letting go of the employees who had perpetuated the toxic culture within the dealership. Their arrogance, their dismissiveness, their disregard for basic human decency. These were the behaviors Snoop Dogg couldn't tolerate, and they were the behaviors that had to be eradicated. As he dismissed the employees, Snoop Dogg didn't let the mood become malicious. He remained professional, calm, and collected, but his actions were resolute. He knew what needed to be done to reshape the business, to make it into something better, something that valued every person who walked through the door, no matter their background. He turned his attention to the remaining staff members, those who had shown kindness, respect, and genuine professionalism toward customers. These individuals were promoted, not just because they had demonstrated their worth, but because they represented the core values that Snoop Dogg wanted to instill in the entire dealership. He made sure to provide them with the leadership roles they deserved, ensuring the dealership would run on a foundation of integrity. Within hours, Snoop Dogg had completely restructured the dealership. The toxic atmosphere that once prevailed in the showroom had been replaced by an environment of respect, openness, and professionalism. Under his leadership, the dealership, once known for its elitism and poor customer service, became a place where customers felt valued and listened to, regardless of their wealth or appearance. The change didn't go unnoticed. Word spread quickly about the transformation that had taken place under Snoop Dogg's ownership. Customers who had once been turned away because of their perceived status or appearance were now being treated like VIPs. The dealership became a symbol of integrity and fairness, attracting not just wealthy buyers, but people from all walks of life who appreciated the company's new approach. Snoop Dogg's impact extended beyond the showroom. He took an active interest in every aspect of the business. He would often walk around the dealership, engaging with customers and employees alike. He made sure to listen to their concerns, answer their questions, and ensure that the dealership was running smoothly. His approachable demeanor, combined with his fierce commitment to excellence, earned him the respect of everyone around him. As the months passed, the car dealership began to flourish. Sales were up, customer satisfaction soared, and the company's reputation was more solid than ever. Snoop Dogg's leadership had turned the business around, and it had become a model for customer service in the luxury car industry. When Snoop Dogg finally left the dealership, now completely under his control, he felt a profound sense of satisfaction. He had not only gained respect from those who had once looked down on him, but he had also taught a powerful lesson in humility and kindness. The people who had judged him, who had mocked him and dismissed him, were now unemployed. And the dealership, once a symbol of exclusivity and elitism, now stood as a beacon of fairness and respect. Snoop Dogg's story wasn't just about buying a car dealership or gaining control of a business. It was about showing the world that success didn't come from external appearances or flashy displays of wealth. It came from integrity, from being true to yourself, and from treating others with kindness and respect. His story became a powerful example of how determination and integrity can change the world. It served as a reminder that appearances are often deceptive, and that you can never truly know someone by the way they look or the clothes they wear. In the end, it wasn't the luxury cars or the money that made Snoop Dogg successful. It was his character, his vision, and his unwavering belief in fairness and respect.